So yeah, I came across porn, and I learned, I think, at that point that I liked boys, and like I said, the internet had just come out, so I got very smart on how to use the internet and how to maneuver. And today my computer skills are very good. And I did more digging, and I started reading. Gay porn wasn't something that you could find on the internet back then. You didn't see a lot of videos or photos. A lot of those were locked behind sites, and you really did have to provide some kind of authentic age verification. And what I was able to find was I was able to find stories, gay erotic stories. And I just began reading and reading and reading, and I pretty much spent my entire high school career, my high school sexual focus, while dating girls still, because mind you, I still knew that being gay in my community was not accepted. So I had other girlfriends, and I ended up getting, I think, to second base. Oh, that's not true. I actually did get to first base, but that's a different story, a different time. It didn't happen at high school. It was actually a job I had at a very early age of 14. I'm sorry, that was 15. It was the year after I started that job. Martha. Anyways, so I was learning about all these things. I was reading as much as I could because it did something inside of me. I connected with it, and there was feelings there. So while I had these girlfriends, they didn't give me those same feelings, and I started knowing. By the time I was 18, because I didn't really want to explore it too much, I didn't really even want to accept it. While I was secretly reading about this stuff, I thought that was probably all it would ever be, was just a fantasy, because where I lived, I never even knew about a city. I mean, I knew cities existed, but I'd never been to a city. The population of my town, well, I didn't even live in a town. I lived up in the hills. But my school, my graduating class was 200, and I think we were the largest class to go through ever. So it's a very small, very remote place. So I played the game, and I convinced myself that I had to do this. And even when I was 18, I think that's when I really first started breaking out of my shell, and that's when I had my first experience, which I'm sure some of you are going to ask about that, but we'll talk about that another time. But I began slowly dabbling and meeting people, and it wasn't anything, crazy. It was all on the DL. It was people far away. I would travel like an hour to go meet people at their place, probably slightly dangerous, but I wanted to know more. And I knew I couldn't learn where I was, so I had to go. So I would drive to these places and meet people. I still didn't get it. I still didn't get that I was gay. I thought that this was just sort of like how it worked. I was supposed to live this normal, straight life and have a wife and kids and a dog and a white picket fence and live in the town that I grew up and somehow deal with these feelings inside of me. So between 18 and 21, I continued being straight and putting on the facade. I never actually had a true girlfriend from that point on, but I did go out with many girls, and I went out on dates, and I played the part of the straight guy, and I played it off that way. And in fact, I had almost convinced myself to a certain degree that there was a girl that I really wanted to be with, and it's something that I don't know if I did it to myself, but it's something that caused me a great deal of pain for a good deal of time, because I had almost convinced myself that I was in love with her. And I don't know if it was that, or if it was that I should feel that way, because that's what everyone wanted me to feel, and that's sort of... So, anyways, I decided to take a job when I took a job when I was about 20 years old in a very northern town in New York. very, very far north, just maybe an hour or so from Canada. And I had a good job, and I was making good money, and I was still, at this point, it was even harder to explore because I was so far away and in such a remote territory. There was no one to talk to. There were no gay people. And it was very difficult even to get out of there because of the work. And then my cousin Bill, who you'll meet at some point, he's agreed to come on and do a video, but he's out on the West Coast and I'm in Chicago. But he and I were talking, and we had always been close our entire childhood. He's my step cousin via marriage, but probably one of my best friends easily. And he had moved to Chicago to go to school here. And he and I were arguing one summer about how I would never leave New York. And I think he bet me something that I wouldn't leave. So I applied to school out in Chicago, and don't you know, I got it, and they gave me a scholarship. They paid for half of my tuition, and I was going to Chicago. I had never been out of the state before. Well, that's not true. I had gone to Toronto on many school trips to watch Pantages Theater, but I don't know if that really counts. But I was, 21 years old. I decided to just up and move to Chicago and go to school and finish with my bachelor's degree. And god damn it, that's what I did. And I remember I wanted to come here first before I made the final move. And it was my first time on an airplane. And I had to drive an hour to an airport, got on, and I came to Chicago, and I remember seeing the city for the first time from the sky, and it was just so huge. It was just so big and so amazing and so intimidating. It was almost overwhelming. And we landed, and that was an incredible experience because we had a little bit of turbulence, and my cousin was there. He picked me up at the airport, and we had a conversation, and pretty much that was the first time I told anybody that I was gay. We were coming back from the airport, and he basically told me that so that was the first time that I basically told anybody that I was gay. And I remember when we were driving into Chicago, I think we were coming in from the Northwest down 94, and I just started bawling. I started crying. It was just too much. I didn't know. There was just so many buildings everywhere. Wherever you looked, there was just so many buildings in every direction, and I didn't know where we were going, and I was so scared. But it was really great having him there with me. And first place we went is Nookie's in Boys Town on Halstead and Buena, I think it is. Or Halstead and Buckingham, one of the two. It's in Boys Town in Chicago, and it was the most amazing food. It was my first time out at like a real restaurant in the city, and it felt so cosmopolitan, and everything felt so right. And then we went and we saw the apartment, and it was just like this tiny little shithole. It was this tiny little shithole with this little L-shaped bedroom, like down a set of stairs that me and him shared together, and we paid like $1,000 a month for this place with a tiny bathroom, one closet on the other side of the apartment, and a little tiny kitchen with like 2-burner stove and a mini motorhome fridge. But it was fantastic. We were literally half a block from the nearest gay bar. This is really the time that I came out to myself, and I had full access to just men everywhere. Oh my God, there were men everywhere. And it was like a kid in a candy store. I can't lie. I don't know what happened, but it's like something lit up inside of me, and I was at gay bars, and I was talking to people, and I was so happy, and I was so comfortable. And I remember saying to my cousin that I've never felt so happy in my whole life. But he was the only one who knew. And as far as my rest of my family, I couldn't tell anybody. It was you can't do that. So I pretty much lived this double life in Chicago. I was a gay man in Chicago having a freaking blast. The stories that I can tell you, and I will tell. I was just having a blast, and everything was so great. And then I met somebody